The July 12, 2011 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
Here.
Miss Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Mr. Baroth. Mr. Beebe. Mr. Cassetti. Mr. Colby. Mr. Daniele. Mrs. Draw. Mr. Eckel. Mr. Esposito. Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamina is excused. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Mr. Hyder. Mr. Howland. Miss Kaylee. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lightfoot. Mr. Monero. Mr. McCann. Mr. O'Brien. Dr. Quattro. Mr. Rocco. Mr. Tucciarello. Mrs. Valerio. Mr. Yolovich. Mr. Antelli. Miss Andrews.
Everyone, please stay seated, and at this time, I would like to have a moment of silent prayer. Legislator John J. Howland will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Howland. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You've all received your copy of the Journal of Day 7, June 14, 2011. Without exception, the journal stands approved as submitted. There is a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those who are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire at the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, we would request that you silence them for the duration of the meeting, and thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, you have referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are all in your folders. At this time, I would like to introduce Mark Quinn from the Monroe County Parks Department, who's here to tell us about our plant of the month, the Potentilla, which is a plant of the rose family. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Again, the plant of the month is Potentilla, and we have several varieties up here. It's a beautiful summer flowering plant. One of the nice things that we like about this plant is that it starts blooming in June and pretty much continues to bloom right on through fall. Now, if you look at the plants here, you'll notice that it's not a great profusion of blooms. It's kind of a steady bloom throughout the season. So it's a very nice plant that'll bloom all summer long. It's very tolerant of harsh conditions. It likes full sun and will tolerate a wide variety of soils. What it doesn't like is the shade, and it doesn't do particularly well in cold environments. So we're in warm environments. They don't grow in Florida and in the South. Kind of like the lilac, they like our northern environment. They're very easy to grow again, easy to plant. They don't grow particularly fast, so they stay in bounds. So if you plant them in an area that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, it's a good spot for them. If you do have problems with them and need to prune them, they're best pruned in the early spring. They can be cut right down to the ground, and they come right back up again. So, and there's about 100 different name varieties. They come in a range of reds. Mostly yellows is what you're used to seeing, but there's reds, pinks, and whites as well. And we have plenty in Highland Park if you were interested in seeing a number of varieties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. This evening we have several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk.
Would representatives from the Americans with Disabilities Act please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair, and this proclamation is being presented by County Executive Maggie Brooks as well. Whereas 21 years ago, this July 26th, the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, of 1990 was signed into law. And whereas this landmark legislation at once acknowledges the historic exclusion, discrimination, and segregation experienced by people with physical and mental disabilities, and pledges to eliminate these wrongs. And whereas according to the 2000 census, there are an estimated 50 million Americans living with disabilities, approximately 120,000 of which live in Rochester and Monroe County. And whereas the ADA has been the catalyst for substantial and far-reaching changes that have resulted in the removal of many barriers to our built environment, employment policies, and service delivery practices in government and in public accommodations, thereby significantly improving the quality of life and community involvement for people with disabilities. And whereas disability rights advocates continue to strengthen the foundation of our country by actively promoting the full inclusion of people with disabilities into American life, reminding us that the democratic ideal of freedom must be universally accessible to us all. Now therefore we, Maggie Brooks, County Executive, and Jeffrey R. Adair, President, do hereby recognize on this day, July 12, 2011, the 21st anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Furthermore, we commend all those who have worked tirelessly before and since to ensure equal rights, equal opportunity, and inclusion in all aspects of American life for individuals with physical and mental disabilities. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. This is a law that is only as meaningful and effective as are the efforts of all those who really work to achieve full accessibility, and certainly the county and the city and many of our private sector folks have done a great job. I never appreciate what a great job it is until I go out of town and see that how much better we are. On behalf of our council members, I would like to thank the county executive, our legislative president, the mayor's office, and a number of our department heads who have worked so enthusiastically with us, including the Board of Elections and Public Safety, and the RGRTA folks, as well as the project management for the new transit center. They have worked very well with us and continue to work with us. And we'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to help make a difference.
Would Alicia Cabrera please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey Adair and Legislator Stephen Tucciarello. Whereas the Monroe County Legislature Young Citizen of the Year Award was established over 10 years ago to recognize the accomplishments of our outstanding youth of Monroe County. And whereas each year Monroe County youth are nominated from all over the community, winners are chosen based on their passion and drive to change the world. Their achievements have enhanced the quality of life in Monroe County. These young citizens have exhibited outstanding leadership and performed extraordinary acts on behalf of others. And whereas the recipient of this award has displayed leadership qualities, academic excellence, and a commitment to Monroe County through community service and extracurricular activities. And whereas congratulations on being selected for this honor and for setting a positive example for your peers. Let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Stephen Tucciarello, Legislator District 4, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize Alicia Cabrera for being chosen as a Young Citizen of the Year, and we offer our most sincere congratulations.
I'm going to talk. First off, I want to welcome Alicia here tonight, and I'm glad that you could make it. I'm glad that you brought your family, your friends tonight here with us. Alicia was nominated, as one of the youth, and she could not attend the ceremony last time. And this year, Alicia, we did something that we haven't done before. We gave away a President's Award, and the President's Award was picked by me. I did it legit. I looked at what was written about Alicia, and it was what she has done to make a difference in her community, what the success she's had in school, the time volunteering that she's done at the Ronald McDonald House, the Bethany House, the stuff that you do with the young kids with music at Gates Charter High School. It was really remarkable, and all of this while you kept a part-time job, correct? Where do you work?
I had to take off, but Marcello's Bakery?
A bakery. Alicia, you're going to find something out. I, too, am a baker. And I know the long hours that you may put in and the hard work that is. So with all of those things, I just wanted to say congratulations on behalf of all of my colleagues here, all 28 of them. You are a great role model. You are a great person. And you can't be half bad if you work in a bakery. So congratulations. And I'd like to present this to you.
Thank you.
And next time you get a, please come, an invitation from me, please come. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I didn't prepare anything, but I would just like to say thank you all for this recognition. Thank you. Yeah.
Would Bill Keeler please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Michael G. Barker and Karen T. Hanna. Okay, that's fine. Oh, sorry, we'll read them. Okay. Whereas, as the director and curator of the Fairport Historical Museum, Bill Keeler has been a leader in preserving and sharing local history. As a longtime member of the Perrington Historical Society, Bill has been the author and editor of the Society's newsletter, The Histogram, for the past 19 years. The newsletter contains articles about the people and places that helped establish and develop the town of Perrington and village of Fairport. Bill also serves as a librarian and archivist for the Rochester Historical Society. And whereas Bill has co-authored 3 books that chronicle our community, including his most recent book published in 2009, titled Fairport and Perrington, Then and Now. Through the vintage and modern photographs, the book presents the changes over time that have taken place in Fairport and Perrington, since its earliest days as a rural community and canal town. And whereas the preservation of local history is important for communities to understand their heritage. As the town of Perrington celebrates its bicentennial celebration in 2012, we are confident that Bill's years of service with the Perrington Historical Society will undoubtedly enrich next year's celebration. We thank Bill for his exemplary work and for bringing life to the rich history of our community. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Michael G. Barker, Vice President, and Kieran T. Hanna, Legislator, District 18, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Bill Keeler for his knowledge and service chronicling the history of the town of Perrington and village of Fairport. Would Chuck Matrano please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Richard A. Beebe and Rick Antelli. Whereas Chuck Matrano has long emphasized fair play and sportsmanship throughout his athletic career. In March 2011, Chuck was named by the Institute for International Sport as one of the 20 living Americans who has made significant contributions to the practice of fair play and has enhanced the national consciousness regarding the central importance of sportsmanship. And whereas a native of Greece, New York, where he lives with his wife and 3 children, Chuck is a graduate from Greece Olympia High School, where he first learned the value of sportsmanship. Upon graduating, Chuck attended St. John Fisher College for his bachelor's degree and SUNY Brockport for his master's. And whereas Chuck was recognized by IIS in 2007 as one of the 100 most influential sports educators in America, after he created the Conduct Foul program, which was adopted by the NCAA Division III as part of its strategic plan. The Conduct Foul program tracks bad conduct of players and coaches as a means to deter it, resulting in a reduction of fouls, penalties, ejections, unsportsmanlike behavior, and fights. The program serves 11 sports, over 400 institutions, thousands of athletic teams, and thousands of student athletes across the country. And whereas, since 2001, Chuck has served as the commissioner of Empire 8, a Division III athletic conference in Western and Upstate New York, where he provides support and discipline to all players and coaches. His visionary leadership is felt on a national scale as he is considered one of the great sports educators in America. Chuck speaks across the country on sportsmanship, ethics, leadership, and using sports to educate and shape positive values. And whereas Chuck Matrano has advocated for many educational programs as well as groundbreaking NCAA Hazing Prevention Summit, and has been integral to numerous committees and forums on sportsmanship and ethical conduct. He has made significant contributions to the practice of fair play and sportsmanship and has enhanced the lives of young individuals here in New York State and across the country. Now therefore let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Richard A. Beebe, Legislator District 6, and Rick Antelli, Legislator District 7, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Chuck Matrano for the indelible mark he has left on the sports world in the areas of sportsmanship and fair play. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and certainly the acknowledgement that this body has bestowed upon me for the efforts for the better of our society and our young kids. It really is a passion of mine to speak to old people, older adults, and younger adults about the value of leadership and sporting behavior. I think it's so important, particularly in an educational setting, that while we are molding these young men and women, that we're putting them in a position to be successful upon graduation. And part of that is, how do we respond in adverse situations? And when we're put in competitive situations, we always show our true colors. So what we try to do is mold that character and shape those values at the earlier ages so that upon graduation, they're prepared to make healthy and positive choices in society. So, it's a passion that I share, and I know one that many of you in this room share as well. So, again, thank you for the acknowledgement, and I truly do appreciate it. Thank you all.
Would representatives from Town and Country Cleaners please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Travis Hyder. Whereas since 1969, Town and Country Cleaners, located at 2308 Monroe Avenue in Brighton and 24 North Main Street in Fairport, has been a neighborhood dry cleaner with superior service that many residents of both communities have come to rely on. Recently, Town and Country became the first dry cleaner in Monroe County to convert to a new environmentally friendly cleaning technology called Green Earth. And whereas Town and Country has long been focused on conducting their business in a manner that best utilizes the most environmentally friendly and sustainable practices. The Green Earth cleaning process involves using solvents comprised of liquefied sand to clean, removing dirt and grime from clothing without damaging the garments or leaving any post-cleaning chemical odors. If the solvent was accidentally spilled, it would naturally revert back to harmless sand. And whereas, in 2009, soil samples taken from around their Brighton location showed that a chemical called PCE was present at over 14,800 times the state standard. Even though the spill occurred 5 years prior to their purchase of the business, owner Bill Panipito and his nephew, Michael Michike, vice president and head of operations, worked diligently and invested significant resources into the remediation of the property. Today, Town and Country has taken a potentially hazardous site and transformed it into one of the leaders in green business here in Monroe County. And whereas Town and Country also recently implemented a hanger recycling program using plastic-coated hangers that are cleaned and reused. All garments that leave the building are wrapped in a biodegradable poly bag that naturally decomposes in only 2 years, instead of the traditional bags which do not decompose once deposited in local landfills. As Town and Country Cleaners enters their 5th decade of service to the community, they have truly positioned themselves as the greener cleaner in Monroe County. Now therefore let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Travis R. Hyder, Legislator District 14, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Town and Country Cleaners for their dedication to sustainable business practices. Congratulations.
I'd like to thank everybody for this award and for acknowledging us with everything that we're doing going forward and our vision of being the greener cleaner. And thank you once again.
Would representatives from the Borinquen Dance Theater please come forward? Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Saul A. Monero. Okay. Hi.
You guys can line up in the front.
Whereas Borinquen Dance Theater is currently upstate New York's only professional Puerto Rican dance group, founded in 1981 by Padilla Rodriguez, the artistic director and a former student of Garth Fagan. The program combines artistic excellence and dance study and professional performances with the culturally rich heritage of the Latin American and Puerto Rican cultures. And whereas Borinquen Dance Theater serves a diverse population of Hispanic youth and families throughout Monroe County and focuses on educating and reaching out to at-risk youth, over 150 youth participate in classes 3 times a week for 42 weeks that are held at Hochstein School of Music, Rochester City Schools, and community centers. Borinquen students must maintain a high GPA, and the program boasts a 95% graduation rate for all their high school students. And whereas the comprehensive curriculum is developed from Caribbean, African, and Spanish traditions and incorporates modern, contemporary, and hip-hop dance styles. The culturally rich program focuses on professional development in dance as an artistry, career opportunities in the arts, body wellness, nutrition, self-esteem building, teamwork, accountability, and professional etiquette, all of which demand concentration, focus, and physical and mental agility. And whereas a key member of the artistic community of Rochester, Borinquen Dance Theater participates in performances all over the community and across the Northeast United States and Canada. The program has earned a reputation of using a safe, structured program to develop life skills for the thousands of students that have taken part in the program over the past 30 years. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Saul A. Monroe, Legislator, District 29, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Borinquen Dance Theater for their dedication to dance and youth in Monroe County on the occasion of their 30th anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you. This is really an honor, and it's, you know, you cannot do this without the community being involved and engaged, and I have my crew here. Without the board members, Monica Mattioli, who's just completed her presidency for close to 10 years, Nancy Padilla, school board, was a former school board commissioner, city council, but also a member of Borinquen, Jackie Ortiz, our board member, Yolanda, volunteer, Deborah, volunteer, Annette, parent and volunteer, and of course, my husband, John, who without his support, I probably wouldn't be doing this. 30 years is a long time. I still feel very young in heart. I have the passion of working with kids, but without the support of the parents, the students, the community, the funding sources, and the passion to give back to the community. And thank you, Saul Monroe, our county legislator, for even thinking about this proclamation. I'm honored. We are very proud that you would even acknowledge Borinquen Dance Theater. Thank you so much.
We will now recess for the purpose of holding 3 public hearings. I declare open the public hearing on resolution intro number 234 of 2011 entitled Adoption of the 2012-2017 Capital Improvement Program.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing now closed. I declare open the public hearing on resolution intro number 250 of 2011 entitled Amending Resolution 437 of 1989 to amend leased and operating agreements with the Monroe County Airport Authority to add the property commonly known as 545 Valentine Road, town of Chi-Lai, New York.
And there are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed. I declare open the public hearing for local law intro number 256 of 2011 entitled Amending Local Law number 3 of 1997 entitled Local Law Authorizing Lease of Monroe County of 42 East Avenue, City of Rochester for the Appellate Division Court Facilities and agreement with the New York State Appellate Division, 4th Department, and the Unified Court System to include 5,800 square foot of office space located at 45 East Avenue.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare the public hearing closed and reconvene the June 24th, 2011 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. There are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. We have several people registered to address the legislature tonight. Mrs. Razi.
Please use the center aisle when your name is called and be prepared to address the legislature. Each speaker will have 2 minutes, and we ask that you conclude when the timer sounds. And thank you for your cooperation. Our first speaker is Ann Tischerer. Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Ann Tischer. You may know me and my wife Bess Watts as gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender civil rights activists. We have been recognized as being instrumental in the success of the New York State marriage equality legislation. In fact, we were just named Grand Marshals for this Saturday's Pride Parade. A reporter asked what prompted us to get involved in the fight for marriage, and my answer was the Monroe County Legislature. So I'm here tonight to thank this body, in particular the majority party, for being the catalyst that ultimately delivered Senator Elise's vote and brought marriage equality to New York State. 6 years ago, as naive citizens, Bess and I rigorously advocated here for domestic partner benefits for Monroe County employees. It still hasn't happened. Despite assurances from then President Zyra and legislators like Bill Smith and Doug Dobson that they saw offering domestic partner benefits as a humane and fair thing to do, it never happened due to political reasons. Bess and I had hit a political stone wall, but it had unexpected consequences. We saw government concerned with itself and not people. And as our frustration grew, we morphed from concerned citizens into active leaders. Every time we encountered injustice from non-responsive legislators, we were driven to higher levels of leadership. Bess started a local chapter of Pride at Work AFL-CIO. Now she's on the national board. She got elected president of a CSEA unit and now is the local president over 20 units. We needed a strong grassroots organization, so I built Equality Rochester, recruited Marriage Equality New York to come here and mentor us. We formed alliances, learned strategy and tactics, organized rallies, built public support, raised money, networked statewide and nationally, built a huge database, and lobbied senators. I even got arrested once. 6 years ago, we couldn't get domestic partner benefits here, so we got marriage equality instead. There is a tipping point when citizens will not accept politically motivated decisions that negatively impact their lives and families. Senators Elise, McDonald, Saland, and Grisanti rose above self-interest, and I hope you will do the same. You will be called on in the near future to do right by the working people who are the backbone of this county and this country. Consider that your actions could have unexpected consequences. In any case, thanks for your help with marriage equality.
Our next speaker is Jeff Goldblatt. Please come forward.
Good evening. Each of you will receive this little picture page in your follow-up packet. I will explain what it is. There's a rather serious problem at the Monroe County Recycling Center to the tune of 3,000 tons of hazardous and non-hazardous waste that is hitting the floor every year. Just in terms of hypodermic needles, we'll use my pen as a demonstration. If I were a worker over there and got stabbed with one of these containing God knows what, the lawsuits would be endless. The reason for this is simple: a lack of up-to-date information that each county resident needs to have so they know what they're responsible for. This is a fixable problem, just as Madison County has done, just as Onondaga County has done. A new flyer needs to be developed jointly between the county, all of the haulers, not just one, and yes, the profligate spenders at City Environmental Services, to make sure everybody understands what they're supposed to do, what can and can't be recycled. Also, for cable channel 12s in all of your communities, there needs to be a half-hour program done so people can see what happens when this tonnage hits the floor, gets processed, and is then packaged and sent off to processors. Most people have never been over there. I'll bet many of you have never been over there. I have. And once people see that certain rules have to be followed, that 3,000-ton figure should begin to drop. And for those of you who do not think the topic is important, I commend to you the CNBC documentary Trash Inc., The Secret Life of Garbage. It's only an hour-long program, and once you see it, get back to me and explain to me why this isn't an important problem that needs to get fixed promptly. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Tom Gregory.
Before saying anything, I just want to say that if I had my druthers, I wouldn't be here tonight. It's my son Jonathan's 33rd birthday. He's in Germany, and if he's watching from Germany, I doubt that, but happy birthday, John. I've got another son, Christopher, who turns his next age, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten their ages, on the 15th. Thing I'm speaking on a topic, I called it Emily Good is a Hero. It covers more than just Emily Good. I think what she did was courageous. I think that when we look at this flag up here, it's more than just 911, that a lot of the things that we as citizens like to be able to do is address our legislature, complain, and even call our legislature dirty names, which I'm not going to do today, Dan, but a little joke over here. One of the things, though, I think we lose track of what this is all about. I think we lose track of what this is all about when I happen to go to the public library over here and find it closed, a place where people learn how to express themselves, reduced hours. We look to our police over here and we say, well, we need them to enforce our laws. But do we need our police to enforce laws as rigorously as our police enforce the laws if we have citizens who are at places like the public library learning how to basically be good citizens? I'm concerned with the fact that the hours have been cut. Another point, I mean, this is not a well-planned presentation. But another point that I'd like to make is there was a black man, a young man, probably 20-ish or something, who wrote in the newspaper just as either Saturday or Sunday, and I heard it, I read what he said. He said at the end, he said, well, he says, I've had my say. Is anybody listening? He was a man who was speaking about the fact that he's probably somewhat gang-related, probably tied with the rough part of the society. But these are the leaders right now, and this is a generation that's looking to people like yourselves and saying, hey, look, we don't want to go this path. You know, we want to be leaders. We want to put things together. Is anybody listening? There's a lot of things happening out there in our community, and I think we have to start looking at what these voices like Emily Good or voices like this young black man who said, hey, you know, I'm a leader and I don't want to be a criminal. And we have to kind of look at this thing up here, this flag we have, and we have to kind of start looking in this context and building programs in the context of the freedoms that really we're all about, not policing. And I apologize to the officers here. They do noble work. But our future isn't in the job they do. Our future is in opening up our libraries, getting it gosh darn funding, and making good citizens who are compliant with the law, and reaching out to maybe some of these kids who don't want to go the route that will eventually bring them to an officer. Thank you very much.
This concludes the public forum.
At this time, we'll recess the July 12, 2011 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature for the purpose of convening the Pure Waters Administration Board for the Rochester Pure Waters District. The clerk will please note the attendance and read the item on the agenda.
PWAB 1, referral 11-175.
Moved by legislator Cassetti, second by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. We will now recess the Rochester Pure Waters District and adjourn the Pure Water District Administration Board. The July 12, 2011 meeting of the legislature will now reconvene. We will now proceed with the considerations of local laws. Will the clerk please read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 11-162, providing that local law.
Moved by legislator Cassetti, second by legislator Daniele. This is a motion to lift from the table. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The item carries. Next item, please.
Item number 2, referral 11-162, providing that local law.
Moved moved by legislator Cassetti, second by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? The item carries.
Item number 3, referral 11-143.
Moved by legislators Howland, Hannah, Valerio, Antelli, Draw, Cassetti, Colby, Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
sorry.
It kind of can, yeah. It's all right.
I
We're all
jumped
right,
the gun.
Cheryl. We are lifting that from the table. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Thank you very much for my mental slip there. Let's move on to item number 4.
Item number 4, referral 11-143.
Moved by legislators Howland, Hannah, Valerio, Antelli, Draw, Cassetti, Colby, Daniele. Anybody else wants to second it at this time? Hang on. This is the motion to adopt. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. The annual adoption of this capital improvement program, which lays out 6 years of spending, is one of the most important things that we do every year. And indeed, as in the last year or two, the administration, I believe, has shown great restraint in the size of the CIP, recognizing the financial difficulties that we face, which are only going to become more difficult in the future years. That said, Mr. President, however, all is really not well in River City. If we look at page 7 of the CIP, where debt service is projected out over the next several years, this being the amount of money that's going to have to be raised in property taxes to pay the debt service on the items that are contemplated in the CIP, we see that in the year 2013, the amount of debt service is going to increase by $4 million, or more than 10%. This is particularly troubling when, if I recall the discussion that occurred at the Ways and Means Committee correctly, this is only a partial calculation of the debt service that the county is going to incur, in that a number of projects which have been approved in prior years and no longer show up in the document because they were approved back several years ago, that the debt service calculations for those projects are not included. For example, again, if I recall the discussion at Ways and Means correctly, there's no debt service in this projection for the $70 million worth of debt, which the county legislature has previously authorized for the construction of the new Damon campus. That money having been authorized, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So when we look at the year 2013 and see an increase of $4 million, we really have to realize that that increase is going to be a great deal more than $4 million. I would certainly hope that the board of MCC will very quickly make a decision on the location of the Damon campus, so that in late 2012 and in 2013 and in late 2011 and in 2012, we'll begin to spend, and that means borrow, the money for the Damon campus, so that the $4 million projected increase in 2013 is really a minimal number. The actual increase will be if there's any progress made at all on a number of these older approved projects, the biggest one being the Damon campus, the actual increase will be a great deal more. In light of that, Mr. President, I would like to offer an amendment. And I'll pause briefly while the amendment is circulated. The amendment, Mr. President, provides that intro number 234 of 2011 be amended. Be it moved that intro number 234 of 2011 be amended as follows. To reduce the 2012 authorization for planning and feasibility projects appearing on page 11 of the proposed 2012-2017 capital improvement program from $250,000 to zero, as there remains a significant balance of unauthorized funding within the capital account already designated for this project. And when seconded, I'll speak to the amendment, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Haney, second by Legislator Beebe. I am going to give the maker of the amendment the floor. Legislator Haney.
The intent of this certainly is not to stop planning and feasibility studies. Quite to the contrary. They're an important part of what we do. The fact of the matter is that the county has accumulated from prior capital budgets a significant amount of money which has not been spent in this category. For example, the current amount of unspent money from prior years, as by my calculation, is $788,000. The 2010 capital budget report, which we received a month or so ago, shows that in account 1539 at the end of 2010, that none of the $260,000 authorized for 2010 had been spent. That, of course, means that none of the $250,000 authorized for 2011 has been spent. This afternoon, we received a report, which I requested at the last meeting, on older capital funds that were not included in the 2010 capital budget report. And in that report, we see that in the old capital fund 1457, as of July 12, 2011, which by my Mickey Mouse is today, that there is an unspent balance of $278,000. So, Mr. President, we have accumulated $788,000 in capital funds that are set aside for planning and feasibility studies. That being the case, Mr. President, I do not believe that we need in the year 2012 an additional $250,000 as contemplated in the CIP. As I state, the elimination of the funding in 2012 will not cause any cessation of the planning and feasibility studies. They can go on from the accumulated funding. And furthermore, if by some quirk there should be a sudden great rush of planning and feasibility studies, we could always during the year amend the CIP to make other funds available. But I quite frankly doubt that that would ever occur because of the size of the accumulated funds. So I would given the fiscal realities we're going to be facing down the road, Mr. President, I would urge this body to adopt the proposed amendment simply because I do not see any reason why we need to add $250,000 to the unspent money we've already accumulated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing there's no other discussion this time, I'll move to a roll call vote.
Dr. Quattro? Mr. O'Brien? Ms. Andrews? Mr. Antelli? Mr. Barker? Mr. Broth? Mr. Beebe? Mr. Cassetti? Mr. Colby? Mr. Daniele? Mrs. Draw? Mr. Eckel? Mr. Esposito? Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gamina is excused. Mr. Haney? Mr. Hanna? Mr. Hyder? Mr. Holland? Ms. Kaylee? Mr. Lee? Mr. Lightfoot? Mr. Monero? Mr. McCann? Mr. Rocco? Mr. Tucciarello? Mrs. Valerio? Mr. Yolovich? President Adair?
No.
13-15 amendment fails.
Back to the main motion. Is there any other discussion on the main motion? Legislator Haney.
In a similar vein and for the same reasons, Mr. President, I'd like to offer another amendment. Be it moved that introductory number 234 of 2011 be amended as follows. Section 1, to reduce the 2012 authorization for the exterior site and utility improvement project for Monroe Community Hospital, appearing on page 19 of the proposed 2012-2017 capital improvement program, from $200,000 to zero, as there remains a significant balance of authorized funding within the capital account 1523 already designated for this project. Section 2, to reduce the 2012 authorization for the interior improvements project for Monroe Community Hospital, appearing on page 19 of the proposed 2012-2017 capital improvement program, from $550,000 to zero, as there remains a significant balance of authorized funding within capital account 1522 already designated for this project. And section that's supposed to be 3, to reduce the 2012 authorization for the equipment and furnishing replacements project for Monroe Community Hospital, appearing on page 19 of the proposed 2012-2017 capital improvement project, from $500,000 to zero, as there remains significant balance of authorized funding within the capital account 1521 already designated for this project. And if seconded, I will speak to the motion.
Moved by Legislator Haney, second by Legislator Cayley. Is there any other discussion at this time other than that your amendment here needs to read 1, 2, 3, not 1, 2, 1?
I'm sorry?
You made that correction. 1, 2, 3 on your section.
Right.
Okay.
The intent of this amendment, Mr. President, is exactly the same as the other one. I would hope that its fate, however, will not be the same. I'm certainly not attempting to pick on these projects at the community hospital. Certainly, anything that the community hospital needs in the area of these three projects, I would be most supportive of. The point simply is, Mr. President, that these are categories in which we authorize money and then in the capital budget approve funding every single year. And what's been happening, Mr. President, is that the money has been accumulating significantly in these project accounts for several years. For example, again, based on the 2010 Capital Fund Report, which we received a month ago, and the additional report that we received this afternoon, there is currently accumulated and unspent $1,982,000 in capital accounts for exterior site work at the hospital. There's currently accumulated $1,231,000 in capital funds for infrastructure improvements at the hospital. And there's currently accumulated $1,150,000 in capital funds for equipment and furnishings purchases at the hospital. These accumulated fundings, Mr. President, amount to in excess of $4,300,000. We simply, for whatever reason, and that's not the point of this discussion, but we simply are not spending the money that we're approving each year for these projects with the fiscal difficulties that the county faces in the future, with the significant increase in debt service costs that the county is going to be facing just 2 years from now, with the imposition of the 2% tax cap, which we're going to be dealing with here in these chambers within a couple of months. There is, quite frankly, no need to approve additional funding in these areas for the year 2012. The amendment would leave the funding in place for the subsequent years, and indeed, if we had a great rush of activity in any of these categories at the community hospital, we could always amend the CIP during the year 2012. We amend the CIP 2 or 3 times at every meeting that we have. But there simply, Mr. President, is no need for the addition of this, for the authorization of these additional funds in 2012, which will automatically lead to their inclusion in the capital budget in the fall, which will automatically lead to the authorization of additional indebtedness, when in fact we have over $4 million sitting unused in these 3 areas. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just say that when opportunity arises in this body for us to exercise some common sense, it's incumbent upon all of us to do that, and I'd encourage my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to adopt this sensible amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Quattro.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and through you to the administration, I would presume to Mr. Adair, a brief explanation as to why we are continuing to increase the size of these funds, please, prior to the vote on this issue.
Through the President, in particular with the projects referred to in this amendment, they all, the MCH, the furnishings and equipment furnishings and replacement project, the interior improvement project, the exterior site and utility improvement project, it is correct, they do have accumulated balances there as we've reported on them. But subsequently, we have been working with the hospital as they have identified needs for each of these dollars as we move forward, and that is the reason why they were included again in the 2012 through 17 CIP. There are some significant, as I'm sure anyone can imagine, in a facility as aged as the hospital is, there are some significant capital costs that need to be invested in that building periodically, and this accumulation of these dollars will allow for that over the next couple of years. But the hospital has come forward. It was one of the issues that the county executive pressed her CIP committee to look at when they reviewed this plan, to make sure that we were spending this money appropriately and that we were not authorizing an excessive amount to the hospital in order to meet the needs to keep that facility functional.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Kaley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to the administration, can I ask then, with the leftover funding from prior approval, why wasn't it spent down?
Through the President, as I explained earlier, they have been accumulating these resources to provide funding for additional purchases as they move forward. Again, there are dollars that are unspent because they did not have enough to go out and do the next particular item that they needed to purchase in the area of equipment or furnishings. And so now with these additional reserves that they have accumulated or will be getting with the approval of this CIP plan and the adoption of the capital budget at the end of this year, they will be able to move forward with the additional items that they need to procure from the hospital standpoint in order to maintain the facility to the quality that it's maintained at this point in time.
Thank you. Then, through you again, Mr. President, can we expect that this funding will be spent down?
Through the President, as I've mentioned before, the plan is to spend this money down, and yes, you would. I do not necessarily know that I can sit here today with certainty and say that it will be done by the end of 2012, but there are some significant projects that the hospital faces over the next couple of years, and that's why these dollars are included in this CIP plan.
You still have the floor. All done? Okay. Legislator Haney.
Thank you, Mr. President. Legislator Kayla asked the question that I was going to ask, but it still triggers, Mr. President, if one thinks about just the equipment account, well, you're not talking about $1 million expenditure for something. You're talking about buying equipment and patient room furnishings. What? I mean, it doesn't take any grand plan to decide that we're going to replace the patient's beds or whatever it is in the patient's rooms that are going to be replaced. Through you, Mr. President, especially in the equipment account, if we really need that money and if we really need the equipment, why haven't we been buying it?
Through the President, I think the statement that the legislators made regarding the dollar amount of certain items in the equipment area is a little bit mistaken. There are a number of items, including washers and dryers at the hospital, which exceed the $400,000 mark. There is a computer system upgrade necessary for the hospital that exceeds $600,000 mark. Just the general hospital equipment, the beds and things that you mentioned, is approximately $400,000. So there are a number of items here that the additional funding is necessary for in order to make sure, again, that the facility is maintained to the quality standards that is applicable for the residents there.
Well, Mr. President, if we indeed need new beds for the patients, and if we do, I'm certainly for that 100%, I don't know why we haven't bought them.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing there's none, we'll go to a roll call vote on the amendment.
Dr. Quattro? Mr. O'Brien? Ms. Andrews? Mr. Antelli? Mr. Barker? Mr. Baroth? Mr. Beebe? Mr. Cassetti? Mr. Colby? Mr. Daniele? Mrs. Draw? Mr. Eckel? Mr. Esposito? Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gamina is excused. Mr. Haney? Mr. Hanna? Mr. Hyder? Mr. Holland? Ms. Kaylee? Mr. Lee? Mr. Lightfoot? Mr. Monero? Mr. McCann? Mr. Rocco? Mr. Tucciarello? Mrs. Valerio? Mr. Yolovich? President Adair?
No.
13-15 amendment fails.
Okay, back to the main motion. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing there's no discussion at this time, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries. Dr. Quattro.
President, without objection, I'd like to move that the balance of this evening's agenda be moved.
I got a motion from Dr. Quattro, second from Legislator O'Brien. Is there any discussion on that item? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before this body tonight? Seeing there is none.
President, I move this honorable body stand adjourned until Tuesday, August 9th, 2011 at 6 p.m.